At Subway, start your day the flavorful way by adding new guacamole to your favorite breakfast sandwich. Perfectly made with a hint of jalapeno, our guacamole turns up the flavor to your breakfast. Try it today on a hot and toasty egg, white, and cheese. Subway, eat fresh.
The BS Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects. The BS Report. The BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the BS Report, May 8th, 2014, Thursday. It's a special day for the BS Report. It's the 7th anniversary of the BS Report, which was initially called Eye of the Sports Guy. What a terrible name that was. I can't believe we called it Eye of the Sports Guy. We're gonna go for like 2+ hours and 2 parts today. We're going to call a whole bunch of people, including Mark Stein, who was the first guest of the BS Report, or as it was then known, Eye of the Sports Guy. Anyway, our first guest right now, because it's NFL Draft today, Grantland's own Bill Barnwell. What's happening?
I'm very honored to be not only the 7th anniversary guest, but also the prelude to Mark Stein. Very flattering on both levels.
Yeah, my dad's going to come on. We're going to call Jacko. We're going to call House. We might call Sal. I might even try to crank call Lombardi in the Patriots drafting just to have him pick up and hang up on me.
Well, Mark Stein's writing that Manchester City rush, so he's very excited right now.
Yeah.
It's a good time for him.
So you've been doing great stuff on Grantland with the draft. I've been enjoying it. We should also mention you are now a budding podcast star. You and Robert Mays have probably pumped out 200 podcasts about the NFL in the last 6 months. In fact, you're doing one right now with Mays as you're doing mine.
100% accurate. You're a guest on our show.
Yeah. What is the name of the podcast? I can't remember.
It is the Grantland NFL Podcast.
We need a better name.
I kind of like that it's such a generic name. It's not the low post. I understand that's the high water mark of Grantland podcast names. Fantastic.
Great name.
I can't argue with that. But we're working on it. We're going to have a contest, I think, in the running maybe.
What about, maybe it should sound like a local sports radio show, like Barney and Mays.
Oh, come on.
Mays and Barney.
A sports radio morning zoo kind of show. That's like the exact opposite of the show I wanted to.
Let's talk draft, because, first of all, there was never any doubt that Clowney was going to go first to this draft. Once the season ended and everybody started watching his clips again and realized, like, oh, my God, what are we doing? This guy has to go first. But do you think Houston is the team that's going to take him?
I do. I think there's been a lot of smokescreens over the past few days, and I think that's because they want to get blown away with the trade offer. I think they'd rather get, the RG3 trade from somebody and get 3 first-round picks and a second-round pick or whatever, and they may get that. That's entirely possible. But if they stick at number 1, I would say I'm almost positive they're taking Jadeveon Clowney.
It's the right move.
Right, of course.
Yeah,
I mean,
you're not going to go wrong. You're not going to go wrong with him. You're not going to go wrong with Sammy Watkins. I don't know enough about Khalil Mack or Greg Robinson, but I can tell you that I watched Sammy Watkins play football, and he's going to be really good. So it seems like that's your top 4.
Exactly.
And yet every year in the draft, we know that there's a top 4 and there's a tier, and then it drops to the next tier. Mm-hmm. But then something weird happens, and one of those guys, whether it's 4 or 5 or whatever, one of those level 1 guys will end up falling backwards 1 or 2 spots. Which one do you think that's going to be?
That's tough. I think it might be Mack. And not because he's not talented or not because he doesn't deserve to be in the top 4, but just because the teams in the top 4 don't necessarily need a pass rusher. I mean, the Browns are the most interesting team in this draft to me. They're at 4, and they have another first-rounder as well. They have more draft capital to work with than anybody else in the draft, and they don't really need a pass rusher. They really could use maybe a second wide receiver next to Josh Gordon. So if Watkins falls to them at 4, that'd be perfect, because then you can draft a quarterback at 27 or wherever they pick next, and you'll have Josh Gordon, Sammy Watkins, and Jordan Cameron with Joe Thomas protecting the quarterback. That's perfect. But
I'm trying to remember Sammy Watkins and Josh Gordon together. I mean, obviously we've had some great receiver combos over the years. I'm hard-pressed to remember 2 more physically dominant receivers being on the same team together.
I mean, you're looking at maybe Randy Moss and Chris Carter in the late 90s when Randy Moss just came out of school. I mean, it's
Chris
that
Carter
sort
was
of freakish
never
combination.
Right. And Chris Carter was never like lightning fast or anything. These guys are like, if you put one on one side and one on the other, I would freak out if I was the defense. I wouldn't even know what to do. So the problem is if they have a bad quarterback, it's probably not going to matter. But I don't think
he makes every quarterback they have better.
Right. Well, unless they're terrible. unless it's impossible to make them better. But you wrote about it last year. We covered it a little on Grantland, but the Josh Gordon season, when you factor in the 2-game suspension and the quarterbacks that he was playing with, might have secretly been like one of the 7 best wide receiver seasons of all time.
Yeah,
and I think he's only, 21? 22?
I think he's 22. He's really young.
Yeah.
And he still has, 2 years left in his rookie contract, I think. So he could be one of them. He's going to be a top 10 trade value guy when the trade value thing comes out next July. For sure.
So I was thinking, so you get those 2 guys together. You're in Cleveland, you're the Browns, you're beaten down, your fans are beaten down, you're the lovable losers, you have no chance to ever win a title. Well, you have Kevin Costner in draft day is like the best thing that's happened to your franchise. But this is their best chance ever to get a franchise quarterback, because let's say there's some free agent coming up, like a la Drew Brees in 2006 or whatever, and he's looking around the NFL landscape and he sees this team that has Sammy Watkins and Josh Gordon on it. That's a team I'd want to play quarterback for.
Right, and Joe Thomas. You have someone who's going to protect you from your blind side, the best left tackle in football, and 2 great receivers, plus Jordan Cameron, who's not bad as tight end goes. I mean, that's 3 very viable targets.
So that's
for sure.
So to me, this is I agree with you. I think if he's there they have to take him. Mm-hmm. And to me, it's a 2-year strategy where you put these 2 guys together this year, and then next year you're really thinking strongly about, all right, we're either trading for a QB or whoever the free agent is, we're getting that guy because people are going to want to throw to these 2 guys.
Well, what if they end up with Tony Romo? Because there's been rumors today that the Cowboys are desperately interested in one Johnny Manziel.
All right, let's talk about him now. We'll just get it over.
Let's get straight to it.
In my head, I always thought the best scenario for him would be falling to – I wrote this too, that falling to Arizona at number 20 would be the biggest win for everybody, because it would immediately make Arizona good. It would save Larry Fitzgerald's career. He's had this Hall of Fame transcendent career, but really it's been a tragedy ever since Kurt Warner decided to do Dancing with the Stars.
Right.
And then on top of it, Manziel would have that just the instant nobody believes in me factor, right? He'd have that chip on his shoulder now, a la Drew Brees and some of these other guys, Russell Wilson. You need the chip on your shoulder. So for football fans, Arizona's the best spot. But now here comes Dallas. And I don't know if this is good for Johnny Manziel.
I can tell you, being drafted by the Cowboys does not appear to be good for anybody these days.
Good point.
It doesn't make sense. And for the Cowboys, given that if they cut Romo this year, or if they traded Romo or whatever this year, his cap hit would go up from $11 million to $41 million. So it's not going to happen this year. But they could maybe draft him and leave Manziel on the bench all year, but that pretty much destroys their season, because if they draft Manziel in the first round, every single Cowboys fan is going to be waiting for that moment to boo Tony Romo and chant for Johnny Manziel. And
you're cutting Romo's knees out.
Right. It's going to be a coronation waiting to happen. I think it happens next year for the Cowboys. I think they take a quarterback next year. I think Manziel would make sense for the Cardinals at 20. I just don't think he's going to get there. But they could trade up. And I guess the other question is, Larry Fitzgerald's contract is pretty onerous. They might have to get rid of Larry Fitzgerald next year, no matter what, regardless of who they have at quarterback, just because his contract is growing so rapidly. But
why? So
it makes sense.
It's a good point. But trying to figure out where Manziel goes here, if he gets past Tampa at 7,
maybe Tennessee,
and he gets past Minnesota at 8, now it gets dicey, because now you have the Bills aren't going to take him. Detroit. Tennessee.
Ken Wisenhunt loves very typically, very traditional, big, strong-armed, not accurate quarterbacks. Johnny Manziel does not fit into the quarterback type Ken Wisenhunt tends to favor. So he might draft Manziel. I could be wrong, but it seems like
7, 9, or 11 are very possible.
More of a Blake Bortles guy.
Well, but 7, 9, 11. Then after that, Giants, Rams, Bears, Steelers. Those teams aren't taking him. Dallas is at 16, Ravens 17, Jets 18, Miami 19. Arizona will be the next team. I feel like that would be like, wow, I hope one of these quarterbacks slides here. This would be great for us.
If you're the Browns, though, let's say you're the Browns and you see Manziel dropping and the Steelers are up at 15, and you know that the Cardinals are coming. Wouldn't you take your 26th pick, your second first rounder from the Trent Richardson trade, and trade up and go after and come away with Manziel and Watkins? Wouldn't that be an incredible draft for you?
It would be the greatest moment in recent Browns history, that's for sure. My question
except for draft day.
Except draft day, In classic Browns fashion, draft day bombed in the box office.
So is the NFL draft too late for a draft day tie-in? Because draft day came out like in the second week of April. It's already on its way out of theaters. Do you think they're going to drag out Kevin Costner?
The problem with draft day is this, and this is part of the problem we're looking at with $1 Million Arm, because we have a really good movie that we're not sure people are going to go see. You really need a reason to go to the theater. It's like, oh, Godzilla's knocking down buildings and I get to put on 3D glasses. I have to see that in the theater. I look at draft day and you saw the ads. It's like, I'll wait till that comes until I'm on an airplane, or I'll wait until that's a pay-per-view, or I'll wait until that's on HBO. There's no urgency to actually go see it. I mean, you didn't see it, did you?
No, I refuse to. I have to admit.
But you'll see it at some point, and so will I.
For sure.
The next year, you and I will see it. We're just not going to go to the theater to see it. I think that was the problem with it. It really should have just been an HBO movie. But but I look at the Browns, like I'm looking at Todd McShay's mock draft right now. Mm-hmm. He has Teddy Bridgewater going 26 to the Browns. You and I both really like Bridgewater. I don't understand why. First of all, people are picking him apart and looking for all these reasons he's not going to be good. All they're doing is increasing the size of the chip that's going to be on his shoulder. And this is a guy who in games knows what to do, rises to the occasion, has the special ability to make those wow plays that we know over and over again in the NFL. You got to be able to make the wow plays. I'm in on Bridgewater. If you get him at 26, that's a great pick.
Right. So you remember Eugene Lin, the center, who I think the Nets drafted him, right? Or the Wizards or the Nets? Who drafted him originally?
Who was it? Oh, Yijin Lan?
Yeah, Yijin Lan, excuse me.
Yeah. On the Bucks drafted him initially over Joakim Noah. Yeah.
Right.
Good one.
So Eugene Lin gets drafted because he played really well against the chair. He really dominated the chair in his pre-draft workout.
The chair was tough, though.
It was, but this is the thing. Like, what's happening to Teddy Bridgewater right now because he screwed up his pro day and didn't do well in his pro day? This is like knocking Jabari Parker down around because he tripped over the chair.
Right.
Like, it's crazy that you would have this guy who's incredible in games, who handles the rush like, he's been a quarterback his entire life, who looks like a 10-year veteran when he's playing, and you knock him down for not playing well against air, for missing a few passes, during his pro day. It just makes no sense.
And he's a leader. And I did podcasts at the Super Bowl with Drew Brees and Colin Kaepernick, asked them the same question about what they felt like the makeup of a quarterback's success was, what the percentage is for leadership, charisma, all the things that have nothing to do with actually playing quarterback.
Right.
And I think Brees said like it's 80%, and Kaepernick said it was like 75%. Everything we saw, the guy's a leader and he has charisma, and he's just good at being a quarterback. So I don't know how you watch him in a workout and talk yourself out of him. It makes no sense to me.
And the other weird thing is that now it's like,
but again,
they're picking stuff apart. Well, what do I know? But I mean, they're picking stuff apart now. It doesn't make any sense. Like, there was an article last week about how he's not somebody said he's not the face of the franchise, which, like, that's the Daniel Bryan story from WrestleMania, which is weird that it's actually happening in the NFL at the same time. But then B, like there's never been any criticism of him to that extent. Everybody around him says he's a natural leader. He's someone who's been, the face of the Louisville program for the past couple of years. And so, see that stuff come out because he had a bad pro day is really weird and sort of, unsettling, given that he's not a 6'5" white guy. And that seems to be what the NFL's looking for in their quarterbacks most of the time.
I'll tell you this much. If he's there at 29 and the Patriots pass on him or trade down, I'm going to be pissed off. Because Tom Brady is 37 this season, and Tom Brady's not going to play. I know this is a big theme back home with the sports radio, because they have to talk about things and beat stuff into the ground. But I'm just saying, as a Pats fan, I feel real urgency with this draft and with this season in general, because every track record we have with quarterbacks is that this is when they start to tail off a little bit. He's 37. Right. He's not going to be able to keep playing at the level he's been at, and there's been some signs of slippage over the last couple of years.
Right, and you saw after Gronkowski went down last year, that was not a very good offense, except for that one game against the Colts. But, they really struggled throwing the ball after Gronkowski got hurt last year. So what do you want? You're a Patriots.
And he's had a harder – well, but the other thing with Brady is he's had a harder career than Manning has, Like, Manning has had 130 games in a dome. Brady's been in all kinds of weather situations for his whole career. I think he's probably played 20 games total in a dome. If you include the Super Bowls, like 24. The number's low. I think they have to go all in now in this season or have to start thinking about what the future is going to look like without him. And if Bridgewater is there at 29 for all these stupid reasons, I think they should take him, because there's going to be a world someday that Tom Brady's not in.
Mm-hmm. If he's not there,
I don't know.
If Bridgewater's not there, what do you want for the Patriots? Do you want a wide receiver again, or what are you hoping for?
Hey, they're going to trade down. They always trade down, but they need defense.
And draft a defensive back.
Yeah, they're going to trade down. They're going to do what they always do. I'm resigned to it. We're going to have my dad on after you, and he's going to do his annual rant about how he loves the draft. He watches it. Then we trade down every year. But we didn't have enough impact guys on defense. We didn't hit hard enough. I just think every year the same thing seems to matter in January, and the Pats don't have enough guys who put the hats on the ball.
I think I could see maybe Lewis Nix.
Especially in the front seven.
Yeah, I could see Lewis Nix going there as a 340-pound monster from Notre Dame. His scouting report actually says it begins with built like a full-grown man, which says a lot considering that you're looking at NFL prospects for the rest of the time. Kind of like the closest thing to Vince Wilfork in this year's draft. And you think maybe Vince Wilfork, you're talking about Tom Brady. Vince Wilfork's coming off of a torn Achilles. He maybe has a year or two left. There was talk that maybe the Patriots would move on from him even this offseason. I think Nix would make a lot of sense as someone who would be if not a full-time starter this year, someone who might give Wilfork more snaps off and eventually grow into that role for the Patriots.
Yeah, I would like that, and I got to be honest. I'm really concerned about Wilfork because it's bad enough to have that injury, but when you're carrying 340 pounds or whatever he is on top of it, I certainly don't think he's a mortal lock to come back. I think this is a important draft for the Pats. I don't think it's a huge draft for the Pats. Like I don't think it's any more or less big than the other years. Who do you think, other than Cleveland, who you just mentioned? Who for this draft only, who is it a huge draft for? Which team?
I think Atlanta, right? I mean, given that they're a consistently pretty good football team, and they're maybe, 2 years ago they were maybe a piece or two away from winning the Super Bowl. If they have, Harry Douglas makes that one catch on that play where he gets wide open, they go to the Super Bowl. This is going to be their one chance to draft at the top of the draft for the next 3 or 4 years. And they have a bunch of holes. They need to get this one pick right. I don't know that they should trade up and get Jadeveon Clowney. I don't know if that makes sense given that they are so thin at some positions and they really got exposed last year when guys got hurt. They really need depth more than one individual player. But if they get this pick right, it could be something that propels them to the Super Bowl. It could be that big of a pick if they get the 6th overall selection correct, if they trade up and pick the right guy in the top of the first round.
I wonder what the track record is of teams that traded a ton of assets to move up in 2 of 4 drafts.
It's not great.
Just with the way the NFL operates, with when you need so much depth in the NFL to succeed year to year, I wonder it just seems like a bad business plan, personally. I wouldn't do it. I would stay where they are and try to get a blue chipper, but I would not trade up.
It's high variance, Unless, I mean, when it works out well, you get the 2012 Falcons where people stayed healthy mostly and they made it almost to the Super Bowl. And then when it goes wrong, like 2013, you end up with guys you've never heard of playing, huge snaps for you when you really struggle. So there's no guaranteed right or wrong, but it's just a matter of, how much variance are you willing to risk?
The 3 teams in the top, actually maybe there's 4 in the top 10 that I would say underachieved last year and have some talent and have the capacity to maybe make the leap. You and I always look for the leap with the team, like the Chiefs last year. Every year there's a team. And it's gotten to the point where you can actually figure out who the team is, and everybody kind of knows who it is, even in August. But I think Houston, no question, was not a 2-14 team last year.
Of course, for sure.
Different coach, better quarterback situation. They have talent. You add Clowney to that team, plus some of the other stuff they did this season or this offseason. And that's a team that could immediately be 9-7 and 10-6. The Rams are interesting because they have some talent too, obviously, from these drafts the last few years. They're in a really tough division, so you could argue that if they were in a different division, it might have been better for them. Now they're adding the 2nd pick. That could help. The Browns, I think, are interesting because that was a 4-12 team that was in all of those games.
Right.
That was a 4-12 team that easily could have gone 9-7 with 5 different plays.
Yeah, they were very close.
And now they have 2 first-round picks, which is one of the things you and I love to look at. It's the draft can just be such an infusion for a team that's on the cusp. All these teams, there's 25 teams every year that could go 5-11 or 11-5, depending on 3 players.
Right.
So they're in the mix. And I think Atlanta, obviously, I keep saying the word obviously, but Atlanta, not your typical 4-12 team.
So you're not getting on the Tampa Bay bandwagon with me and Mays again this year, or?
Lovie Smith, right? I do like Lovie Smith.
It's a big coaching upgrade.
It's almost like I feel the same way about Avery Johnson, where at some point it should matter that there was real success, like he won 10 games every year, basically.
Right.
Avery Johnson won 66 games with the Mavericks. Like he made the finals. He had high win totals, and it's like at some point that should matter. I think the Lions at number 10 are interesting too, because that was another team, 7-9, horribly coached, sloppy,
I'm still not ready
weird
to talk
chemistry.
about the Lions missing all their futures last year when they were 7-4 and going to win the NFC North. Very painful for me.
I would not say that was a 7-9 team. And then right after them, Tennessee was 7-9. That's another team that, with a couple different things that could have happened. Maybe if Locker doesn't get hurt and a couple other things, that maybe that's a 10-6 team. So, so some of these picks, depending on who goes where, could be interesting. And also if they trade down, get more assets. What do you see the Giants doing?
I'm really hoping for Aaron Donald, who is a kind of a J.J. Watt clone. Not as good as J.J. Watt, obviously, but kind of has that reputation coming out of school. Had a great final year in school. Dominated the Senior Bowl. Had the best combine of anybody in the league. The planet theory guy. Bill Parcells has that theory where there's only a certain number of guys on the planet who are 300 pounds and who move like they're 210-pound guys. And Aaron Donald might be one of those guys. Drafting him, I think, would make me happy. Or Eric Ebron, the tight end. I would like a weapon for Eli Manning, given that Eli Manning threw about 27 interceptions to the outside of the field last year. So something on the interior might be nice too. How
every draft there's like the 1 or 2 guys that just because of their position they can't go in the top 3 or 4, but everybody knows they're going to be awesome. I remember that year with Earl Thomas. What did he go, like 14? Yeah, everybody knew Earl Thomas was going to be awesome, but nobody really wanted to take a safety that high. And then when he went where he went, everybody was like, "Oh man, that's a good pick. That guy's going to be good." Doesn't it feel like Eric? The same way. Doesn't it feel like the tight end who's being tied to the Giants in a lot of these mocks, Eric Ebron? It feels like he's one of those guys. Like he's going to go 12th. Everyone knows he's going to be good. The season will be going, and like in week 6, people will be like, "Oh man, why did he go 12th? That was stupid."
Yeah, Luke Kuechly's the same kind of player. I think Eric Ebron would be.
That's another example.
I would love Eric Ebron. That would be fantastic for the Giants.
Any guys in this draft? Another thing you and I love is the guy who's super young. Luke Kuechly was like that. The guy he's 20 or he just finished his junior year, but he's not even 21 yet. And compared to some of these guys are 23 and maybe even 24. Is there a guy who's like super young in this draft?
I don't know. There's no one who really stands out as like the obvious kind of like Tyron Smith a couple years ago. Where,
that was another
Tyron Smith was like, I think he was like 17 when he came out in the draft, and it was like, oh, he's going to be pretty good.
He was 13.
I got a question for you, Bill.
Yeah.
Now the NFL draft this year. Yeah. This is the first year where players are going to be allowed to pick their own walk-up music as they come to the stage. That's 100% true.
I did not know that.
Yeah. How upset are you that the NBA hasn't been doing this for years? Like, wouldn't that have made the live running diaries of the NBA draft that much more entertaining if you had a suit to work with and walk-up music?
That's unbelievable. I love that so much. I'm sure they were league approved songs, right?
Well, you got to figure for just to pick one, Johnny Manziel is going to come out to Drake, obviously. I mean, that's a lock. That's the lock of locks in the draft. Drake might actually even be there cheering on Johnny Manziel. Given that Drake tends to do that a lot, from what I understand.
Drake's available now that the Raptors are out.
Well, I mean, he'll probably pick another team pretty soon. You got to figure.
He's going to jump on the Miami bandwagon.
It's going to happen. Yeah. I mean, he's just lucky it wasn't Miami and Toronto. That would have been very tough for Drake.
This draft does have some good loopholes, though. You're right. So they're picking their own music. You have Goodell, who, as you wrote about in your column today, is going to get the all-time worst reception any commissioner's ever gotten in a draft. Yeah. I mean, he might have to come out in one of those glass cases just in case people start throwing stuff at him. And then you have the Manziel part, which is awesome. And then on top of it, even though he won't go today, but the Michael Sam factor is going to be a fun second day wrinkle, I think.
Right. It's going to make you watch on that Saturday when people they say, oh, I'm going to watch the draft, and they tune out after 20 minutes and they realize they don't know any of the players being drafted. People are going to stay tuned for that third day to see if Michael Sam goes. And I hope he does, obviously.
And he'll definitely go, right?
It's tough.
Is that up in the air now?
It seems up in the air. I think someone will draft him. I don't know when it'll be. God,
that'd be awful if he didn't get drafted. That would just be the worst.
It'll definitely be tough.
I can't believe that's. Normally these drafts are never that much fun from a drama standpoint. And in a normal year, I feel like Bridgewater would be the most compelling subplot. Mm-hmm. Is he going to drop out of the first round? That's what we'd be focused on. This year, between some of the teams that are in the top 6 and Houston, whether to take Clowney or not, just having Clowney in the draft, and then on top of it, the whole Manziel part. And then, don't sleep on Seattle with number 2 and number 13. That's pretty rare to have a top 4 pick and a top 13 pick in the same draft. I can't remember that happening that many times. That's a team that could. Yeah, I feel like there's a fork in the road moment for them. But yet, for some reason, it feels like they are still embracing the Sam Bradford era.
It really is just, it's so irritating. It's at one point, somebody has to just say, okay, listen, Sam, we tried it. You're going to get hurt again. We know it's going to happen. It's just not going to work out at this point. I would love to see them, even if they don't draft a quarterback, if they draft Greg Robinson, the offensive tackle, second overall, and they, like you said, they have the 13th pick. Wouldn't they consider trading up to 4 maybe if Sammy Watkins is there and coming away with Watkins and Robinson? Wouldn't that be a good draft too?
I love it. I'm all for always trading up if you can get the impact guy. I was one of the only people I think who was kind of intrigued when Atlanta did that with Julio Jones, even though everybody thought they gave up too much. But it's ultimately you look at these Super Bowl teams and they all have the 7 or 8 blue chippers. You need them. You should try to go get him. I was thinking, though, with Houston, if they have Clowney and Watt on the same team, if I'm any of the other 31 teams, aren't you rooting for them not to do that?
If you have a quarterback who's going to play them, you're rooting for it for sure. You don't want them to end up with.
Let's say you're Indianapolis, Jacksonville, or Tennessee, and you have to play Houston twice a year. Well, that's the thing. You're sitting there watching this draft going, I pray to everything that's holy that they don't take Clowney because I don't want to have to play Clowney and Watt twice a year. I really don't want to live in a world where that happens. And I feel the same way with the Browns. These teams have to be looking at them going, oh, my God, they're not really going to put Watkins and Gordon in the same team, right? Mm-hmm.
That's the way I think
those
you
are
build
the
a
two
team.
ones. Yeah, do what the other teams don't want you to do.
Right. If you're going to be you can't be great at every position, but look at the Seahawks, for example. They have a dominant world-class secondary that, nobody comes close to matching. And if you're going to be, I think it's better to be really good at something and then kind of mediocre at some other things and then hope that the thing you're really good at sort of lifts up the rest of your team than to be kind of average at everything. The Seahawks, obviously, good running game. Russell Wilson's a great quarterback. But, they make their pass rushers better, for example, by virtue of having an incredible secondary. They work from the back out. And I think with Cleveland, maybe if you have a great set of receivers, maybe that lifts up your passing game. It makes your running game more dangerous. And it puts your defense in situations where, if you're getting a first down every time you try throwing to Watkins and Gordon, maybe it puts your defense in better situations. They don't have to defend as much of the field. So, I would definitely try to make something about my team really good as opposed to just kind of being average everywhere.
Yeah, and I think the Pats are a good example. Actually, the Giants, too, of
right.
I look at well, just like what the Pats I watched the Pats-Giants Super Bowl a few weeks ago. The second one, not the first one. But I didn't watch the second one since I went to it. And it was on, and I was just in one of those self-mutilation modes where I just wanted to feel bad about myself and life in general for 3 hours. So I watched the entire game. Actually, no, I watched the last 3 quarters. And that Pats team was – I can't believe we almost won the Super Bowl with the guys we had on defense. And we had Chad Johnson. Chad Johnson was like the number 2 receiver.
Wasn't Julian Edelman playing defensive back?
Yeah. Our defense was terrible. We were so banged up. And it's like we had what's-his-face who made the tip play in Baltimore, against Baltimore, he's the strip play that saved the AFC title game. I can't even remember his name.
I can't think of his name either. I'll find it.
Yeah, I'm old, but the defense was terrible, and we literally almost won the Super Bowl. If Brady hits Welker in stride on that play, we win the title. And that team had so many holes, but yet we had 7, 8, 9 blue chip guys that were really good. And it just makes me think like, yeah, okay, so fine. So Houston will have holes here, and here, but they're going to have Clowney and Watt. That's pretty good.
Right, that's going to make the rest of your team that much better. You don't have to invest heavily in the secondary if your pass rush is so good that nobody has time to get open. I mean, it really
that Giants team wasn't great across the board.
No, certainly not.
You had really good receivers. You still had a good front four, but you had holes all over the place. You won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and I mean,
one of my weird pet theories.
Right, they were able to take advantage of a weakness in the Patriots. Their interior, their offensive line was not that good, and honestly, that's been a problem for the Patriots pretty much every time they get knocked out of the playoffs. You see their interior, their line get beat up. Happened in the AFC Championship game too. But it was a good matchup for the Giants, and I mean, I didn't think that Giants team was very good, and they went on a hot streak at the right time. Ravens were the same way 2 years ago.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. I'm going to call my dad. Barnwell, good work this week. Are you doing a podcast with Mays tomorrow?
Friday morning. Column coming tomorrow for Grantland, wrapping it up, and then a Friday podcast where Mays and I are pretty much just going to go over entrance music for the entire time.
I look forward to that. Thank you for appearing on the 7th anniversary BS Report. Bill Barnwell.
My pleasure, buddy.
All right, as promised, my dad, it's an annual tradition. He gets really excited for a Patriots first-round pick near the end of the first round. He watches the whole draft. He counts it down. He starts excitedly texting me about guys that are falling to us that he's fired up about. And right before we're about to pick, they trade down. Are you excited for this again?
I'm not excited for the scenario you just described because it happens too frequently. I mean, it seems like so many drafts, you and I are talking when our pick is ready to be chosen, and all of a sudden trade is announced, and we end up with a second and a third or whatever we get. They did an interesting thing on the radio yesterday. They rated the last 10 drafts for the Patriots, the first-round picks, second-round picks, third-round picks, and if I recall, 8 of the 10 first-round picks that we took a pick were pretty good picks. The second and third round picks, we hit on like 30% of them. And I don't know whether it's that we just don't draft well in the second and third round, or all of those people who argue there's great value when you pick up second, third, and fourth round picks. I mean, it's the old discussion you and I have had about every sport. Do you trade 2 quarters to get $1 or vice versa? And,
I want blue chippers.
We want blue chippers. I agree. I mean, we're always so frustrated when they pass up on the blue chipper and they take 2 average guys in the second and third round. How often
on the
does
other
it
hand,
happen?
On the other hand, the Patriots go 11-5 or 12-4 every year, so maybe we're wrong and he's right. I don't know.
Well, not when you look at the players they've picked, and then it makes. I mean, we haven't. Yeah, that is true. We go to 11-5, but I'm sure you realize it's now 10 years since we won the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
so,
I think about it every day.
Yeah, so we're in this strange period of time where we're always good, but not good enough. And if we had hit on some of those draft picks or not made some of those trade down, the trades that we make where we give up the first and get a second and a third or whatever to do, maybe we would have gotten over the hump.
Yeah.
Won 1 or 2 more Super Bowls. What do you think? Same thing?
Yeah, we're going to trade down. But I have an important question for you.
Okay.
We're on the number 29th pick. We don't trade, and Teddy Bridgewater is still on the board. Would you be mad if they didn't take him?
I would not want them to take him.
Interesting.
No, I think they have. What I'm hoping they do is not trade down, and they use their first and second round picks on, and I don't care what order it falls into, but a tight end and a pass rushing defensive lineman. I mean, now that they have revitalize that secondary. Wouldn't you love to see one of those crazy pass-rushing defensive linemen that goes right after the quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, and obviously, because of the Hernandez situation, we need a second tight end who can block and catch the ball.
Who's not in jail?
Yeah, he's not helping us right now. So that's what I'd rather see. It'd be nice to have, it's the old argument. We have 3 or 4 years maybe left with Brady. I don't know. But
yeah,
I want to win now. I'm not looking to draft Teddy Bridgewater. Is that his name? Teddy Bridgewater, so that we're guaranteed to continue to go 11-5 for the next 10 years and still not win the Super Bowl.
I agree with you.
I want to win this year.
I agree on that. So I think either you go after the blue chipper and you move up unless you feel like one of them's going to be there, or you take Bridgewater because the reality is Tom Brady's probably not going to be playing football 3 years from now, and we got to start thinking about it. But I need to have that conversation one way or the other. Either say, hey, we got Bridgewater, and eventually he's going to be our quarterback, and now we're going to make a 2-year run with Brady, or tell me Brady's going to be our quarterback for the next 5 years, and we realize there's some urgency here because he's going to be 37, so we're going to start making some moves.
Well, I thought in free agency, picking up Revis and Browner and a couple of other things they did, I thought they didn't, they never came out and said it, but it seemed to indicate that they felt they needed to go after that Super Bowl right now.
I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so.
You're right.
And I hope that the draft is consistent with the free agent move that they made. But, every year there's a John Abraham out there. There's some pass rusher out there as a free agent.
Like Jared Allen this summer. You and I talked about him. They're going to go after Jared Allen. They just never make that move. It's like. But we used to. That's how we end up with Rodney Harrison. They always used to grab the guy at the tail end of his career who had the one more really good year left.
Yeah, I really thought they were going to go after Jared Allen. Then that would have changed.
He got a crazy contract though from the Bears.
I know he got a crazy contract, and I know it's obvious the Patriots aren't willing to give out one of those crazy contracts. But I would have balanced that with how much more time do we have with Brady, and do we need to give out that crazy contract so we get that crazy defensive lineman with our revamped secondary, and our defense is going to carry the day. I mean, we're already going to put up points. So,
one of my big goals for this draft is that we don't pick anybody who eventually becomes involved in a double homicide. So I'm going to start there with this, and then kind of trickle down toward, do we want to win now, or are we trying to build this 12-4 franchise?
So do you have inside information on certain plays we should stay away from?
I might have Googled some of their off-season stuff to make sure nothing weird was happening.
It is kind of strange, though. There are an awful lot of articles about the only question mark with so-and-so is his recent brush with the law.
And it's like, brush with the law? That's not good. Because that worked out really badly for us. I'm sure you're aware of this, but I don't think you're totally aware of this, that I'm on TV tonight.
No, I was not aware of that.
So here's your TV night tonight. Bruins Canadians game 4. I don't think this can be emphasized strongly enough. A must win for the Bruins.
It's
the NFL draft. Yeah. And then me on ESPN2 doing 2 playoff games. I don't know what you're going to do. You only have one TV and one remote control. I don't know what you do.
You mean there's a channel called ESPN2?
There is, and there's going to be 2 playoff basketball games on it tonight as we get overshadowed by the NFL draft.
Okay, I'll remember to. So I have 3 things I have to watch. I don't think I can do that. I have enough trouble with the
No Red Sox.
No
Red Sox.
Oh, no Red Sox. Yeah, no Red Sox.
No Red Sox tonight.
Well, the draft.
The Bruins Canadians, though.
Bruins Canadian is like you said, you can't go down 3-1 to this team. This is the one team you and I were really frightened about because they seem to play us so well. And sure enough,
Subban kills us. And he kills us.
He's the kind of guy you'd love to have on your team, and you hate him when he's on the other
that'll
team.
never happen now.
Huh?
How big of the reaction was it back home when all those idiots on Twitter were going after him after that game-winning goal?
Well,
or were people like, oh, there's just a bunch, it's a small, idiotic group that doesn't represent us?
Yeah, I actually think Subban did a wonderful job of minimizing the impact of all that when he came out and said he didn't think that it represented the Bruins fans as a whole. I thought his quotes, if they had been made by the Bruins, then you would have kind of looked at them maybe a little bit with some questions. But Subban came right out and said what we all felt, that it represented just that small little group that now has a voice.
Which isn't
on
even
something like Twitter.
Yeah, it's not that small group isn't even Boston fans. They're just assholes. Like they're assholes all over the internet, and they come out in moments like that. And people were asking me like, why didn't you write about this? Why didn't you say anything? It's like, because those weren't Boston fans. Those are just assholes. There's a huge difference. I think in any sort of situation, it lends itself to assholes coming out on Twitter.
Yeah, I agree. And they can come out anonymously, but anybody I've talked to who's a real hockey fan is just so impressed with Subban as a player, and wishes
while also hating him.
Well, yeah, and wishing that he played for the Bruins, where he'd be a beloved member of the Bruins team, but he doesn't.
Right.
And this is what happens, and I think again, it's that little minority that now has a place to express their hatred about anything.
For everything. Yeah. I'm with you. Like, he's one of those guys, he reminds me of, like a much better version of Lambier, where there's a little Ulf Samuelsson in him, where his hands are all over everybody at all. It always feels like he's committing a penalty. So you just instinctively, he's bothering you the entire experience of watching the game, but he's also really good.
Yeah.
And he's
really,
scary.
really
and it's
talented.
like, any power play they have when he's at the top of the blue line, I just feel like he's going to fire in a shot that's either going to go in or almost go in or yield a rebound,
which is exactly what's happened. He's really controlled their power play. I mean, when he came shooting out of the penalty box, and we totally had ignored the fact that he was in there and had that breakaway. I would have bet anything that he was going to score. He's just that talented a player.
It's the first time in a while that Chara has been the best defenseman in the series.
Yeah, we haven't played well though. I'm very optimistic about tonight. It's game 4. Our first line has played terribly. They have to have a good game in them. They played great all season. And, it's like anything. We win tonight, and suddenly we're back to a 3-game series with 2 of the potential games on Boston home ice. So tonight is critical. I mean,
didn't you know they were going to lose game 3? Because they dominated game 1 and game 2. They just dominated, and they somehow split because game 1 was just one of those games where they had 100 shots and somehow didn't win.
One of the
game
TV
2,
channels
they came
here,
back.
For game 1, they put together all the shots that could have, would have, should have gone in game 1, and there were like a dozen of them. I think they hit the post 3 times. It was just one of those
games. They hit the crossbar.
Yep.
In game 2, even though they were down, it was still I still felt like they were controlling both of those games. And then finally it flipped, and they were able to, but game 3, I just had a bad feeling about that one. And I actually wasn't even able to watch it because we had the $1 Million Arm premiere that night. But game 4 tonight's going to be an incredible TV night. We're going to be in the countdown war room. Obviously, we get there. We'll be there by 4:00. We're just doing basically what's called wraps, which is basically the start and finish of the games, any fills, and then the halftime. So we're actually going to have time to watch not just Bruins Canadians, but this draft, the Manziel subplot. Hugh Houston's taking a number 1. It's one of the all-time TV nights. The Bruins Canadian series has been fantastic. Right.
Putting aside the Patriots pick, what's going to happen in the first 5 picks of the draft is pretty exciting because anything could happen. including obviously trades. But even Houston could throw a real curveball and end up taking Manziel. Nobody would be shocked.
I'd be shocked if they took him at 1, though.
I don't think anything's off the table, but
I think Clowney has to go 1.
You would think so.
I don't see a world where he doesn't go 1.
The only thing is that Houston really needs a quarterback, and they already have Watts on the defensive line. So I'm not sure.
Barnwell, before you came on, Barnwell and I were talking about this. So I'm going to ask you as a Pats fan. You're in the same conference as Houston.
Okay.
Wouldn't the move they could make that would strike the most fear in your heart would be if they put Clowney and Watt on the same team?
Well,
that's what I'm rooting against. I hope that world doesn't happen.
I tell you why. Right now, that wouldn't concern me all that much. They don't have a quarterback. I mean, having watched that team a lot last year, I think they used 4 quarterbacks.
Yeah.
They'll have a pretty good defense. That defense will be on the field a lot. And when they get behind, that minimizes the value of rushing the passer because the other team's going to be running the ball to run out the clock and win another game. I think they need to trade down and then pick up a couple of picks and take a quarterback. I think you're probably right. They're not going to take Manziel with the first pick in the draft, but I think they have other needs besides another great pass rusher. If they get value in a trade.
Couple anniversaries. Today is the 7th anniversary of the BS Report, so congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yes, thank you.
I didn't realize it was already 7 years.
7 years. 2 days from now, Saturday, an anniversary we're not excited about. It's the 35th anniversary of the Too Many Men in the Ice game, which is one of only 2 times I ever cried after a sporting event. Although I'm not quite sure why I didn't cry after we lost the 19-0 season. I feel like maybe I blacked out and I did cry and I just don't remember it. But Too Many Men in the Ice, I was 9 years old. We were watching that game in Brookline. We got the penalty, 2 minutes left, had a chance to beat Montreal and go to the finals. And Lafleur came down and cranked like a 60-foot slap shot that just Gilles Gilbert had no chance whatsoever. Goes into overtime. They score. And I proceeded to cry and get a bloody nose all over our couch.
Yeah, I do remember that, by the way. If I close my eyes, I can see Lafleur coming down the left-hand side of the ice facing the Brewers. I can see him winding up to take that shot.
No helmet on.
Yeah.
But it's like we've actually had a lot of success against the Canadians over recent history, but it's still for some reason like that whole stretch where they just beat us over and over again, it still lingers. So even like this year, where we talked about this the last time you were on the podcast, this is probably the most talented Bruins team I can ever remember watching, just from top to bottom. I don't remember us having a better team.
Yeah, that's why I agree, and that's why Game 3 was so disappointing. They, once in a while we'll watch a game and say that team didn't show up. I didn't think we showed up for some reason the way we should have showed up for Game 3. And I mentioned our number one line, but it wasn't just the number one line. Our defensemen were out of position quite a bit in that game. And you can't do that against Montreal's a smart team. They may not have as overall depth and talent as the Bruins, but they're smart, and they certainly took advantage.
Have you worked up enough hatred for some of the Canadians yet? Other than Subban, which Canadian bugs you? Maybe this will be the game.
I think the goalie bugs me. From some of his comments after Game 2, where he basically, not basically, his opinion was that the only reason the Bruins won Game 2 was they got very lucky. And I would just like to beat him. I'd like some goals. I don't think we're screening him enough. Too many of our shots are being blocked. He's got great vision on shots coming in, and he's bugging me. How about you?
I don't like that they have a guy named Bork who's prominently involved. That bugs me for some reason. I feel like we should get all Borks. All the Borks should play for Boston. I don't like the fact that the Canadians have a Bork.
I have to admit, every time they say Bork is bringing my I think it's probably the beginning of senility, but I say to myself, Bork, what's he doing out there?
He's back. Where'd he come from? Yeah, I don't like Carey Price either. And the guy that bugs me is Vanek, because they stole him like at the tail end of the trade deadline for like 4 cents on the dollar. And it just bugs me that he's on the Canadians. And I knew when they made that trade, I was thinking to myself, oh, you got to be kidding me. Like, right. Now, we're going to end up playing them in the playoffs, and this guy's going to do something in one of these games, and all because I think it was the Islanders. They just gave him away.
It is kind of funny.
It's annoying. It was a typical annoying Canadians trade where they just got somebody for free who's going to be awesome in the playoffs. Why don't we ever make those trades?
I thought the same thing you did. And it doesn't help when everything you read and everything you hear about Vanek, they always say, they preface, they say, Thomas the Bruin killer Vanek, or the Bruin killer Thomas Vanek.
It's so annoying.
I mean, we know that. How'd that team get him? I agree. Why didn't we get him?
Well, the irony of the whole thing was the Kings were trying to trade for a scorer, right? And the guys that were available were Matt Molson, Gaborik, who they ended up getting, who's been great lately, and then Vanek. And I think Vanek was the last one to get traded, and he got traded because the other two guys got traded. I think he was the last one, and because the other two guys have been traded, he went for nothing.
Yeah.
And hold on, I'm looking. I mean, I'm Googling it right now, and it said the headline of SI, Thomas Vanek trade bungle is Garth Snow's latest epic gaffe. That's the Islanders GM.
Yeah.
All I could get was it was a conditional second rounder that they get because Montreal made the playoffs, and a prospect forward named Sebastian Kahlberg. That's what they got for Bruins killer Thomas Vanek.
Yeah, I think we could have and should have and
just annoying.
Made that trade. Yeah.
Stop. But just why? I don't understand how my entire life that the Canadians do things like this. I just hate the Canadians. I think I hate the Canadians more than I like the Bruins.
Well, I mean, when you think about Jets, Patriots, Yankees, Red Sox, and Canadians, Bruins.
I would say I hate and Celtics, Lakers would be the other one.
Celtics, Lakers, I guess it's hard to bring that up. I'm not sure I ever hated the Lakers, but I've always hated Montreal. I mean,
I hate Montreal the most.
You know what I mean? I've always disliked the Lakers and what they've stood for. We had great games against them for so many years.
Yeah.
But Montreal's on a different level, and obviously too many men on the ice. That wasn't the only game, though, that really killed us. We had a couple of other...
there's been a million of them. Yeah. Well, also, we've had great fights against them. I mean, the reality is until the last, decade or so, the greatest moment for Bruins fans in the Montreal-Boston rivalry was Stan Jonathan beating up Pierre Bouchard. That was the one we pointed to. Like, yeah, they won a million cups, but we had that one fight when Jonathan made Bouchard bleed all over the ice.
Yeah.
You've come to peace with the Tyler Seguin trade, though, right?
It's kind of funny you brought that up. I'm watching, and I read the paper yesterday, but I'm also watching these games as so many of these Montreal Canadiens are skating.
They're flying around
the ice, and we're having some trouble being in the right place and staying with them. And I'm thinking, we used to have a player like that. He scored 37 goals this year. Could we have used him? And I thought Ginla had a terrific regular season.
Yeah.
But does he look slow in the playoffs or what?
I love him, though.
I like him a lot, but this team is a really poor matchup for us. And would I have liked to have seen Seguin's speed out there? Yeah, I would. I think Eriksson, how many times has he come close, but that puck doesn't find the net?
Yeah, at least he's playing. I mean, when you get that concussion early in the year, I thought that might be it for him.
Yeah.
But
I'll always feel that trade was a 3/4 for $1 kind of trade.
Yeah. Well, we didn't know Riley Smith was going to be this good, though.
Well, he wasn't this good. He had 20 goals, and I think 18 or 19 of them were in the first half of the season. I mean, that's an exaggeration, but he trailed off. I think he leveled off to what he probably really is, and which is an average player, maybe a little bit above average.
Big goal in the Canadian series.
Yeah. Okay, he had a goal.
Wow, right? My dad lighting a fire under Riley Smith. He's going to have a hat trick tonight. This is great.
I hope so. I hope we show up.
You know what I wasn't prepared
I think
for?
We're more talented.
Yeah, we definitely have more talent, but it's the typical bullshit Canadians team that everybody flies around. They get breaks. They get the first penalty in every game. They get the first power play every time. First power play, just lock it down. But I really like Iginla. I've enjoyed him all season. I like how feisty he is.
I have to. I have liked him all season.
He's really enjoyable.
Yeah. And I probably should take a step back. It's just that
you're right. He's old. He's not flying around.
That line looks slow in this series compared to the Detroit series.
No, I'm just saying, like, in general, that's somebody I'd never really watch because until I got Kings tickets the last 3 years, I didn't watch Western Conference at all. And you always knew he was good. You always heard the stories and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But even at his advanced age, he's had a huge impact on the team. And he's really kind of, he's not somebody that fights all the time, but he's really nasty. I like the attitude he has. I think he's a badass. No, I wasn't prepared for that.
Again, the first line needs to get it back together tonight.
I'd like to see a tougher. Wouldn't you like to see? Like, I feel like we have a more physical, nastier team. Down the line.
I don't want to take in stupid penalties because if there's one thing that's very obvious, and it's like you said earlier, it has to do with Subban and their power play. This is a dangerous power play. You don't want to give them foolish opportunities on the power play. And sometimes we overdo our physicality, and I don't want to see that happen tonight. I want them to play physical but smart.
Well, my daughter's already getting ready for the Blackhawks. She's very focused. She hates the Blackhawks. She hates the Blackhawks like I hated the Canadians when I was a kid. And now the Kings are up 2-0 with the next 2 games at home. She's going tonight, and the Blackhawks are looming. And for us, if we get by Montreal, which I feel like we have to win tonight, but it could be Bruins-Pittsburgh, the other team that's always kind of been in the way over the years. And that'd be pretty interesting.
When you look at the Eastern Conference, we had Detroit first. That was a great matchup, original 6 team. Now we're playing Montreal. And then potentially, if we can pull this out, it looks like Pittsburgh. That's quite a route to get to the finals. We would really earn it if we get there.
So should I send paramedics to your house tonight, or are you going to be all right?
Well,
do you want a remote control specialist?
The Bruins game could be over by the time the Patriots even are close to making their pick, so it might time out okay. I'll try to catch you periodically on ESPN2.
I'm not going to take it personally.
Okay. I hope you mention on the game tonight that, and I'm very proud that you're now the winner of a sports Emmy.
Oh, I know you love awards.
I love awards. If you can make a replica of your trophy, I'd like to have one and put it on my table here with all my pictures of you throughout the ages. So that'd be nice.
I'll work on a replica. Yeah, we won the sports Emmy for best documentary series. My dad was pumped. All right, I'll text you during the games. Try not to fall asleep.
All right, remember a defensive lineman or a tight end, and I'll be happy.
All right, cool. Thanks, Dad. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. We are going to take it to a part 2. We're going to call Zach Lowe and a whole bunch of people. That's coming up. Part 2, the BS Report Anniversary podcast. Come back for that one. Thanks.
Target percent off. Whoa.
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at Podcenter at ESPNradio.com.
Peace out.
Hey, what you got there, Golick?
The new Subway Chipotle chicken melt with guacamole.
Man, that looks good.
Yeah, this new guac is really bringing the flavor.
Got one for me too, right?
Well, yes and no. Mostly no. Well, really, all no.
Try the irresistible new Subway Chipotle chicken melt with guacamole, juicy grilled chicken strips with Monterey cheddar, Chipotle Southwest sauce, and new guacamole made from ripe Hass avocados with just a hint of jalapeno. Subway, eat fresh.